Tariffs. They're one of the oldest tools in America's economic toolbox, and one of the most misunderstood. People hear the word and think higher prices, trade wars, bad for business. But what if I told you that the real story behind tariffs isn't about raising prices? It's about protecting your job, your industry, and your country's independence. Because here's the truth. Tariffs, when used correctly, are one of the most powerful strategies we have to defend American workers, rebuild our industrial base, and stop relying on other countries for other things we should be making right here at home. Let's go back, all the way to the beginning. Alexander Hamilton, yes, the guy on the $10 bill, one of the first American leaders to call for tariffs. Why? To give our infant industries the protection they needed to grow strong without being crushed by cheap European imports. It worked. From the 1800s through the early 1900s, tariffs weren't some fringe idea. They were central to U.S. economic policy. They protected steel, textiles, machinery, and helped turn us into the most powerful industrial nation on earth. Even in the modern era, when global trade exploded, tariffs never disappeared. Reagan used them in the 1980s to protect our chip industry from Japanese dumping. George W. Bush used them on steel, and more recently, the Trump administration used them to push back on years of unfair Chinese trade practices. Tariffs weren't about isolation. They were about balance. Because here's what happens when we stopped protecting our industry. Factories closed, jobs disappeared, and entire towns were hollowed out in the name of free trade. We were told that cheaper goods were worth it, that offshore was efficient, global supply chains were the future. But when COVID hit, and we couldn't even get basic medical supplies, or microchips, or fertilizer, why? Because we let foreign countries control production. We made price the only thing that mattered. And now, we're paying the price for it. Tariffs gives us the way to change that, to bring critical manufacturing back, to support industries like semiconductors, steel, and rare earth minerals, not just because they're profitable, but because they're essential. Now let's tackle the first thing critics say. Tariffs raise prices. Sure, a tariff on foreign goods can increase cost a bit at the register. Here's what you don't hear. Those price increases are often minimal, and in many cases, the companies absorb them. Even when they don't, that extra $50 you pay for a washing machine, it might be the difference between a factory staying open or shutting down. And those factories, they support thousands of middle-class jobs, local tax bases, school systems, entire communities. What's the long-term cost of letting them vanish? This is the part no one talks about. Tariffs aren't just economic tools, they're national investments. They give workers dignity, they give companies a chance to compete fairly, they rebuild American capacity after decades of offshoring and decline. And no, they're not just about protecting legacy industries. Tariffs help with innovation too. When companies know they won't be instantly undercut by artificially cheap imports, they invest in automation, training, better design, and better wages. We've seen it happen in steel, in solar, in EV batteries, in aerospace. A smart tariff isn't about hiding from competition. It's about making sure the competition is fair. Now, some say tariffs start trade wars. But let's be honest. We've already been in a trade war for decades. We just weren't fighting back. China didn't rise on free trade. It rose on state subsidies, currency manipulation, and forced technology transfers. They protected their own industries, and we didn't. Tariffs are how we push back, without needing permission from global organizations that don't have America's best interest at heart. And guess what? They work. After tariffs were imposed, some companies moved supply chains out of China. New factories were built in the U.S., strategic industries started growing again, and no, not every tariff needs to be permanent, but they do need to be strategic. Used like a scalpel, not a hammer. Targeted tariffs can create leverage for better trade deals. They bring countries to the negotiating table and help us get reciprocal terms. Because you can't negotiate from weakness. Tariffs give us strength. And what about national security? This is the most important point of all. If we can't produce our own steel, our own food, our own microchips, we are not a secure country. What happens in the next global crisis? Another pandemic, a major war. You don't want to be asking another country for the tools you need to defend yourself or keep your economy running. Tariffs help us protect our most critical supply chains. They keep production domestic where we can control it, where we can trust it. That's not protectionism, that's preparedness. And here's what happens when we get this right. Jobs come back, young people go into skilled trades, factories reopen, innovation follows investment, communities thrive again. Tariffs don't just change the numbers, they change the future. They're a vote for American resilience, for American workers, and for a country that refuses to depend on others for what it can subdue itself. So the next time someone tells you tariffs are bad, ask them this. Are strong domestic industries bad? Is rebuilding our middle class bad? Is defending our sovereignty bad? Because tariffs, when used wisely, do all of that. They're not a tax, they're a tool, and America needs to start using them again. This video helped you see tariffs in a new light. Hit that like button, subscribe to the Privatized Banking Project, and share this with someone who's ready to rethink what economic strength really means. Let's bring industry back. Let's bring jobs back. Let's bring America back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.